Hello, my name is Paul Stoller. I'm an American cultural anthropologist, and it's my great pleasure and privilege to present a brief testimony to the fabulous work of Professor Nάντιas Σερεμετάκη. Nádya and I have been friends and colleagues for a very long time indeed. Our paths crossed through our mutual interest in the anthropology of the census at a time when very few people were engaged in that pursuit. And I must say that over the years our association has been very fruitful. I've learned so much from her about the craft of ethnography, the sensorium and the importance of the senses in social description, and the importance of the commitment of the ethnographer to the people that she or he attempts to describe. Nάντιas Σερεμετάκης' work has earned her a very well established reputation as a scholar of international distinction. She has published many books and many articles, and has been invited to give many keynote addresses all over the world. And she first came to attention through the publication of her major book, The Last Word, which is an ethnography about the lives of women and death in the inner Mani and the Peloponnese in Greece. What distinguishes this book are a number of things. One is that it is a book that has very, very nuanced ethnographic detail about the lives of these women in this part of Greece. Second, she spends an awful lot of time engaged in, she brings a feminist sensibility to the study of these women, which at the time was not all that common in most anthropological work. And third, she spends special attention to the sensuous dimensions of social life among these women in the inner Mani of the Peloponnese. And so, in combination, the work turns out to have a really deep sense of poetry. There's a lot of poetic sensibility about this work, which distinguishes it from other works on the same genre and in the anthropological literature. Following the publication of this book, The Last Word, Nάντιas Σερεμετάκη became interested in the study of the census. She extended her sort of sensory perception of these death rituals in Inner Mani to the more general study of the census. And she became a kind of pioneering force in bringing the study of the census into the mainstream of anthropological thinking. In so doing, she organized a book in 1994, it was published in 1994, called The Census Still, which gathered a group of anthropologists who had been thinking and writing about the census. And it was the first such book that was written about the census. And what's particularly noteworthy about this book is that she wrote an introduction in which she really spells out why it is important to engage in the description of these sensoria to successfully write ethnographies. And so she put the anthropology of the census into the mainstream of anthropological theory, which is a major achievement. Following that, she focused a lot of her ethnographic attention on migration, on medical anthropology, and on ritual. And beyond that, in her spare time, she put together, in 2017, a special kind of textbook on cultural anthropology, which was published in Greece as well as in the UK. But I want to spend the remaining time that I have today with you to talk a little bit about her latest book, Sensing the Everyday. Here, Nάντιas Σερεμετάκη takes her very keen ethnographic gaze to the study of a very difficult area, the everyday, because the everyday is very difficult to grasp. It's jagged, it's incomplete, there are many imponderables that assert themselves out in the everyday. And therefore, it is an area in which most anthropologists have not spent too much time thinking about or writing about due to its difficulty. And so she, in this book, does just that. And she does it in a very interesting way. She gives a musical structure to this book. And this has some history in literature, not so much in anthropology. The great writer Milan Kundera, who was a musician before he was a novel, structured many of his books following the sort of musical patterns, which gave great power and force to his stories. And Nάντιas Σερεμετάκη does pretty much the same thing in this book. I see the Sensing the Everyday as a jazz composition. And why do I say that? Well, she says in her book that this is not a story, this is not a typical ethnography that it tells a story, but an assemblage of complexes that are partial. And she brings them together in a kind of jazz composition. And why do I say that? Because in a jazz composition you have an idée fixe, a central melody, which would be the everyday in the case of this book. And then jazz musicians do riffs, they do improvisations, going away from that melody, but then eventually coming back to it to complete the whole. And Nάντιas Σερεμετάκη in Sensing the Everyday does exactly that. So she basically combines form and substance in a very powerful text that captures, in a way that I've never seen before, the sort of inchoateness, the incompleteness, and the imponderability of everyday life in Greece and, by extension, everywhere else. So in closing, I want to say that Nάντιas Σερεμετάκη has given us a body of work which is substantial, innovative, creative, and original. And we should be grateful for that. Now, I certainly am. And beyond that, she is a model scholar. She's a one-of-a-kind scholar in the world. And I would say that she is rigorous. She's a keen observer. She's patient. She's committed. And beyond that, she has a generosity of spirit and a depth of commitment which is, quite frankly, enviable. So, in closing, I'd like to say thank you so much, Nádya, for your work and for your gifts to us. And the work must continue. Thank you so much.